This classic Big Ten matchup. Penn State at USC. So Penn State's a 4.5 point favorite on the road. USC just lost to Minnesota. Penn State, I think Penn State has looked pretty good the last couple weeks, but like against UCLA, they farted around for a while before they really got going. Penn State is probably better than USC, Ari. Mm-hmm. USC is in gotta have it mode here because things go off the rails potentially if this is not if Penn State comes in and rolls them. There's some questions for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, it's so funny looking at the number 4 next to Penn State here because I feel like if Penn State would have just gone West Virginia mode all year, that would feel normal. That would feel right. But what doesn't feel right is that Penn State has kind of gotten here by default as a result of everybody losing. They haven't lost yet, but they haven't looked at peak level much. But if you did watch the UCLA game, and I did for unspecified reasons, UCLA had zero chance. Like UCLA was so
no, you knew they were never going to win. It was just like, okay, Penn State, stop playing with your food, score some points, and
score 50 points and get out of here. But like they just kind of, farted around 127-11. The score was much closer than the two opponents were on the field in terms of like who's good.
Yeah, the Illinois game was like that too. Even though the score was close, it didn't feel like Illinois was going to win that game.
There is a second gear that Penn State has, and you feel it bubbling, and we have not really seen it at all unless you count West Virginia, and that was a weird game with a 3-hour delay or whatever it was. I think Penn State has that monster in it, and the one thing I will say about James Franklin is that even though he has struggled at times, winning the games that they have to have, right? Like you have to beat Michigan and Ohio State in the last iteration of the Big Ten, the way it was set up in the Big Ten East, and he failed to do that most of the time. But James Franklin has also done a tremendous job of having his teams ready to play in the big games. Like it's not very often that Penn State just looks overmatched when they're playing teams. They did not look overmatched last year when they played Ohio State, and they did not look overmatched when they played Michigan. Now, maybe they weren't going to win those games, but the scoreboards were closer than you would have thought. Like I have faith that Penn State will play its best football game on Saturday of the year. And I think if Penn State does that, they kick the crap out of USC.
And they win the games they're supposed to win under James Franklin. The knock on James Franklin is he doesn't win the games that are toss-ups or that you're supposed to be, equal to this. And you're both superpowers. When Penn State is the clearly more talented team, they usually win. That 9 overtime loss to Illinois is one of the few that you can even remember.
Well, the question is, Andy, is this game one of those coin flip games? Like
no,
we
Penn
looked
State
at
is better.
We looked at this game 3 weeks ago as like, oh wow, this makes October 12th incredible. And now it's like USC's luster is completely gone. And I agree. I think that Penn State is clearly the better football team. And Penn State should win this football game. And James Franklin usually has his team ready to play in these type of environments. And especially if this is a quasi big game where, Penn State has to really, ramp itself up and try to get itself in a headspace where it can avoid messing around like they did with UCLA. I mean, I absolutely think they could win this game by 5 points. I'm going to pick Penn State here. USC is just really tough watch right now, and I don't know why it's not clicking for them, but something's off there. Give me Penn State.
I am also going to take Penn State here. The question is, does this launch Penn State into something else, and do we see that second year? Or is this going to be a close game where they just kind of mess around but are better, more talented, and just win? Because
there's no greater recipient of goodness from the expanded playoff than Penn State, because if you look at their schedule, and I'm sure River will throw it up here, but they then only have to play Ohio State. They get them at home November 2nd, but the rest of their schedule is Wisconsin, Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. If this was the Big Ten East days and USC was a non-conference schedule, they absolutely could have taken this team to one loss and then missed the Big Ten championship game and then maybe not made the playoff as a result of it. But they can lose to Ohio State this year and still be firmly in the mix to be a team that's in the 8 to 11 range. And that's exactly where they typically are every single year. So it's perfect for them. They just have to win this football game, and I think they will.
Yeah, if they win this one, they are very safe, and you feel very comfortable slotting them into the bracket, even if they lose to Ohio State.
And they've been in my bracket since the beginning of the year as a result of this. Like, I don't think they're a juggernaut by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that they are probably a top 10 team, and they are definitely a top 10 recipient of schedule to get there for sure.
Yeah.